What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for MLB Saturday, September 25th.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon.
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to go over my top DFS picks for today's MLB slate.
And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made.
Oh, and good news, guys. Make sure to stay tuned to the very end of this video because we removed the box that was popping up and blocking the lineup. So now you can see a full lineup using these picks that we made in this video if you stay to the very end. Okay, guys, we have a 9-game slate tonight. So let's take a look at the pitcher position. I like Corbin Burnes pitching against the New York Mets. Corbin Burnes, he's a pretty balanced pitcher. He's only giving up a .545 OPS versus lefties, a .449 OPS versus righties, and a .613 OPS versus switch hitters. He's facing a balanced lineup, 4 lefties, 3 righties, and 2 switch hitters. And on top of that, the Mets have only hit 7 of his last 33 pitches. That's a .212 batting average. Corbin Burnes is 11,100 FanDuel salary, 500 less on DraftKings, projected at 37.8 fantasy points here tonight. He has an ERA of 2.34. His record is 10-4 on the season, pitching an average of 94 pitches per game, averaging 44 fantasy points per game. He scored 46, 0, and 76 fantasy points in the last 3 games. Actually, he didn't play that last game, so he scored 46 and 76 fantasy points in the last 2 games. So Vegas thinks there's going to be 7.5 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under, so a low-scoring game. So I like Corbin Burnes here versus the New York Mets. I also like Lance Lynn pitching against a low-salary batting team, the Cleveland Indians. Lance Lynn is giving up a .616 OPS versus lefties, a .652 OPS versus righties, and a .529 OPS versus switch hitters. He's facing 3 lefties, 5 righties, 1 switch hitter, and on top of that, the Indians have only hit 10 of his last 55 pitches. That's a .182 batting average. Lance Lynn is 10,000 FanDuel salary, 800 less on DraftKings, projected at 34.5 fantasy points here tonight. He has an ERA of 2.47. His record is 10-5 on the season, pitching an average of 93 pitches per game, averaging 36 fantasy points per game. He scored 28, 42, and 15 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So I like Lance Lynn here versus the Cleveland Indians. Okay, let's take a look at the catcher first base position. I like Brandon Belt with a 44% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, John Gray. Brandon Belt is batting 33% better versus righty pitchers, batting a 1.038 OPS versus righties, and John Gray, he pitches his worst ball versus lefty batters, 11% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .827 OPS versus lefties. Now, I like this pick because Brandon Belt is 15 for 35, batting a .429 batting average and a 1.329 OPS versus Gray. And that's a big sample size. So Brandon Belt is 4,300 FanDuel salary. He's 700 more on DraftKings, projected at 11.1 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 12 fantasy points per game on the season, and he's been on fire, scoring 22, 9, and 15 fantasy points in the last 3 games. And on top of all of that, Vegas thinks there's going to be 11.5 runs scored in this game, That's their over-under. So I like Brandon Belt here versus John Gray. Okay, everyone, it's time to announce the winner of our $25 weekly PayPal giveaway. And the winner is Nathan Deaton. Nathan Deaton, congratulations. You are the winner of this week's $25 PayPal giveaway. Please reply to our comment to collect your prize.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, here's a value play for you. I like Nathaniel Lowe with a 44% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Chris Ellis. Nathaniel Lowe is batting 34% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .815 OPS versus righties, and Chris Ellis is pitching his worst ball versus lefty batters, giving up a .697 OPS versus lefties. So there's no at-bats versus Ellis yet, and Nathaniel Lowe is only $2,700 FanDuel salary. He's $1,900 more on DraftKings, projected at 9.6 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 9 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 31, 6, and 0 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So I like Nathaniel Lowe here versus Chris Ellis. Okay, let's take a look at the second base position. I like Tommy La Stella with a 35% batting advantage over that low salary pitcher, John Gray. Tommy La Stella is batting 24% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .809 OPS versus righties. And John Gray, we know he pitches his worst ball versus lefty batters, 11% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .827 OPS versus lefties. So Tommy La Stella is 2 for 6 with a .833 OPS versus Gray. He's $3,600 FanDuel salary, $400 more on DraftKings, projected at 10.3 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 7 fantasy points per game on the season, but he's been on fire, scoring 25, 19, and 9 fantasy points in the last 3 games. And we know Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game, 11.5 runs scored in this game, so this is a good game to stack. So I like Tommy La Stella here versus John Gray. I also like Ryan McMahon with a 28% batting advantage over Anthony DeSclafani. Ryan McMahon is batting a .765 OPS versus righties, and Anthony DeSclafani, he's giving up a .869 OPS versus lefties, 20% worse than his other pitches, so he pitches his worst ball versus lefty batters. And Ryan McMahon is 4 for 12 with a .762 OPS versus DeSclafani. Now Ryan McMahon is $3,300 FanDuel salary, $1,000 more on DraftKings, projected at 10.5 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 0, 0, and 13 fantasy points in his last 3 games. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 11.5 runs scored in this game, so I like Ryan McMahon here versus Anthony DeSclafani.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, let's take a look at the third base position. So my home run hitter, my dong of the day, I like Manny Machado with a 38% batting advantage over Oscar Yanoa. Manny Machado is batting a .889 OPS versus righties, and Oscar Yanoa, he pitches 37% worse to righties as he does lefties, giving up a .778 OPS versus righties. Now, there's no at-bats versus Yanoa yet, and Manny Machado is $3,900 FanDuel salary, $1,200 more on DraftKings, projected at 11.6 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 0, 0, and 13 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So I like Manny Machado here versus Oscar Yanoa. Okay, let's take a look at the shortstop position. I like Fernando Tatis Jr. with a 51% batting advantage over that same pitcher, Oscar Yanoa. Fernando Tatis Jr. is batting 14% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .996 OPS versus righties, and Oscar Yanoa, he's giving up a .778 OPS versus righties. There's no at-bats versus Yanoa yet, and Fernando Tatis Jr. is $4,400 FanDuel salary, $1,700 more on DraftKings, projected at 12.8 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 15 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 9, 9, and 25 fantasy points in his last 3 games. And I wouldn't be surprised if Fernando Tatis Jr. knocked one out of the park here tonight. So I like Fernando Tatis Jr. here versus Oscar Yanoa. I also like Brandon Crawford with a 35% batting advantage over that same low salary pitcher, John Gray. Brandon Crawford, he's batting 24% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .890 OPS versus righties. And we know John Gray is giving up a .827 OPS versus lefties. He pitches his worst ball versus lefty batters, so I think it's a good opportunity to stack some lefty batters here versus John Gray. And I like this pick because Brandon Crawford is 10 for 28, batting a .357 batting average and a 1.007 OPS versus Gray. He's $3,900 FanDuel salary, $1,600 more on DraftKings, projected at 9 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 31, 3, and 10 fantasy points in his last 3 games. And we know Vegas thinks there's going to be 11.5 runs scored in this game, so I like Brandon Crawford and this lefty stack here versus John Gray. Okay, moving on to the outfield position. I like Mookie Betts with a 34% batting advantage over Zach Gallen. Mookie Betts bats 27% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .966 OPS versus righties. And Zach Gallen, he pitches 7% worse to righties as he does lefties, giving up a .694 OPS versus righties. I like this pick because Mookie Betts is 4 for 8, batting .500 with a 1.556 OPS versus Gallen. He's $4,000 FanDuel salary, $1,900 more on DraftKings, projected at 14 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 12 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 3, 6, and 9 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So I like Mookie Betts here versus Zach Gallen. Now Cedric Mullins is in a good spot. Lamont Wade Jr., he's in a good spot. George Springer, Charlie Blackmon. But the other guy that I like is Ryan Mountcastle with an 11% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Jordan Lyles. Ryan Mountcastle is batting 4% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .823 OPS versus righties, and Jordan Lyles, he's giving up a .878 OPS versus righties. There's no at-bats versus Lyles yet, And Ryan Mountcastle is $3,400 FanDuel salary, $900 more on DraftKings, projected at 9.2 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 9, 22, and 6 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Ryan Mountcastle here versus Jordan Lyles.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smickety smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.